how do you feel now that you're back into music compared to when you kind of walked away from it and said, you know what, this just it's not me. I need to, quote, grow up.
Mostly I feel awesome because it's like I've always wanted to do this. It's really special, and I feel really grateful and excited and like full of life again, and hopeful, like optimistic. Like I feel like things can work out.
Yeah.
Which is the opposite of how I felt. I feel foolish, honestly, that I thought I'd have to do something else, you know?
I can see that there's a glow about you when you say you are optimistic about it, and that, you know, everything that you just said, I mean, you just lit up when you said that. And I think that personally is awesome. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Two Beers with the Band. I'm your host, Chris Schramm, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Tommy Culley. And Tommy has brought a beer that I'm definitely ready to jump into. So, Tommy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us what you brought?
Yeah, I'm a musician in town. I grew up here, so I grew up playing music here, and I still play music here. I'm a piano player. That's what I do.
Okay.
Professionally.
All right.
And then I do write and make my own music when I have time, and I love it. I don't know.
I gotcha. Do you sing as well, or?
Yeah, I do. You can find me singing. So my artistry side of things, I don't take nearly as seriously. Well, not that I don't make the art serious. I just don't, I don't sing live, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
I haven't. It terrifies me. But
I gotcha.
I like to sing in my basement, you know?
Right.
And I can record it and be like, oh, that was trash, and then delete it and do it again, you know, until I get it the way I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I like doing it like that.
So you focus mainly on playing the piano.
Yes, that is definitely focused more on that.
Okay. Let's go ahead and jump in. What'd you bring us here to?
I got a home style. It's from Bearded Iris, which is here in town. I got introduced to home style at my job. So when I'm not on the road, I cook at a restaurant called Lyra.
Really?
And they give us a shift beer at the end of the night. And this was the first one I tried, and I really liked it.
Very nice.
So I just kept drinking it.
Okay. Well, let's dive right in. Home style is an IPA from Bearded Iris, local brewery here in town. All right. I poured that one a little heavy, but it's all right. This beer has a foamy white head. The beer is definitely hazy. It is kind of a opaque orange in color. And let's give it a sniff, see what we get. What do you get out of that? Tell me what you like about home style.
I like that it is a bit citrusy, but it doesn't like you ever had the Blue Moon citrusy thing?
Yes.
I don't like that. Upsets my tummy.
Yeah.
This one, it still feels like I'm drinking a beer, and it's heavier on the taste, so I feel like I'm really drinking a beer, and I'm not just gurgling water, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, but there's enough difference, I think, because of the Citra that it's like, I don't know, it's fun.
Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty much everything I get out of this when I take a sniff. I get a lot of Citra. I do get a touch of caramel malt, which is what you should have in IPA. And as far as the hops, I get a little citrus, and I get a little earth. Maybe it's herbal, maybe it's earth, but either way, I enjoy this beer.
Me too.
You picked a pretty decent beer, so we'll definitely enjoy this. So, you said you're a cook as well. How many hours a week do you cook compared to the number of, I guess, hours that you put in playing, either for yourself or do you play for a band or do you do any kind of studio type work? What do you do with your music?
Yeah, so right now, I play with an artist named Nolan Taylor, and he's been really busy, which has been awesome. We travel all the time, which is cool. And it's really cool music. I really, really like it. So it kind of varies week to week. They're great at letting me, like, if I have to go on the road,
Yeah.
I let them know. I'm like, hey, I'm just not here this week. And they're like, that's all right. We'll see you when you get back.
Okay.
So it really varies. And then when I am home, and it also kind of depends. I mean, some weeks I practice, that's pretty much all I do. And then other weeks I barely even look at the piano.
Right.
It depends.
Right. You got to step back from it so you don't get burned out. What kind of music do you play when you go on the road?
So Nolan is, he's like indie folk-ish kind of. Like his favorite bands are Pine Grove and Bon Iver. Mm-hmm. But he comes out of this Appalachian, Eastern Kentucky kind of scene.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess indie folk would be the best way to describe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's your preferred genre of music, or when you play and when you create, what would you call your music? What you do?
So if you listen to my stuff I have on Spotify, it's very, I guess it's like poppy, kind of like Coldplay, like more like Coldplay-esque.
Yeah. A couple of your songs, I kind of got that vibe, but I was like, I don't want to put him in a box.
Yeah.
I want him to tell me, what I'm supposed to be hearing.
Yeah, I guess it's like that. I love pop music, honestly. I love writing pop melodies, but I also love, I love jazz. I love playing jazz. I love composing too. I don't do that nearly as much, and I haven't put anything out of me composing really. But I do like it, and I still do it here and there. And actually recently there was an artist in town, Zena, who was making a record, and I got to compose some string parts for her, and that felt really good. But that's why I really don't. Yeah, sorry if that was like really brutally honest, but
well, no, honesty is what I want, and I want to know. When I talk to artists, I want to know why you do certain things or why certain things appeal to you, because I think your fan base would want to know, okay, he maybe somewhere on social media they found, he's a singer, songwriter, a musician, composer. Or maybe someone else wrote that in an article about you. Well, your fan base would say, well, I understand these other things, but the composer aspect, I can't find any, so if they know why, okay, at one time I called myself a composer, but this happened, so I walked away from it, and I don't consider myself that anymore.
Right.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, honestly, my favorite musicians out there, if I find something online about them and I can't find that in their art, that makes me question some of the information I'm finding.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'd start subconsciously questioning some of their songs, because it's like, well, I'm hearing these songs, but what I'm seeing online as far as what this person says about themselves, I'm not finding that in their music. So there's something's not right here.
Right.
Yeah. And I want the brutal honesty.
Full picture.
Yeah. And when I talk to people, I sometimes may ask hard questions, and if I do, if somebody doesn't want to answer it, I respect that, because I do tend to get a little personal, But,
Yeah.
you know, that's just the way I am. I'm an open book, so I kind of, you know, subconsciously think everybody else is an open book. So, you know, but I'm also curious about music to the point where I'm going to ask you anything,
Cool.
you know,
Yeah.
so.
I'll give it to you as straight as I can.
Okay. Okay. Man, I think this beer gets better the longer it sits here. So, what have you been up to lately as far as your music goes?
Mostly just touring with Nolan. It's actually a really cool story, even how I got to play with him. So, honestly, it's a really cool thing. Backstory is I went to Belmont when I turned 18.
Yeah.
And I met this dude, Clark Sexton, who I met him. He was a bass player. We were doing like a Belmont session together.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was like, dude, that guy is awesome as a player. And even the way he played was like very, he like played to me. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm this amazing bass player, you have to play to me. It was like we were just playing together. And he is amazing. And I was like, I love that. And so we became friends. He joined a band I was in at the time, and we played a lot of music together. And then fast forward a couple years, he was doing his own artistry, because Clark is also a singer-songwriter, guitar player. He's also a drummer. He's just one of those awesome characters. But he was like, you should come be in my band. And we started playing in Eastern Kentucky a lot, in that kind of scene, like where Tyler Childers came from, that kind of country music scene.
Yeah.
And we were touring around there a lot, and we would run into Nolan as well, because he was doing the same thing, just playing these kind of small festivals and stuff out there. And I never really met Nolan. I think I ran into him once, but I was pretty stoned at the time, and I could not talk to a person. So he was like, hey, what's up? And I was like, I can't talk to anybody. Like, I got to get out of here. Anyways, and fast forward another year or so, and I decided to like kind of just step away from music completely as a career. You know, just it's like, I'll just play because I love to play, and you know, it gets, I don't know, I was kind of depressed, and I didn't really want to like keep joking myself that I could be a full-time musician, you know, because it had been 10 years of me trying to be a full-time musician and just nothing ever caught. And I was dating a girl at the time, and the story I told myself was, I need to have a reliable job. I need to make X amount of money a year, buy a home, and do the whole, like, you know, thing.
Yeah, yeah. The white picket fence, 2 kids, dog, you know, blah, blah, blah. She
didn't even tell me that. I just told myself that and went for it. And so I told Clark, I was like, I'm not going to play with you anymore. Not, you know, nothing personal. I'm just going to, I guess, go back to college, because I still haven't finished, but go back to college and do something, you know, I guess more ordinary. So I did that for about a year, where I started working at Lyra and was just saving to go back to college. And then Clark called me last March, and he was like, hey, I know you don't want to travel or anything, but I got a gig at the 5 spot in town. Will you come play with us? Like, we miss you. And I was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, also, we've been playing with this guy, Nolan Taylor, and it seems like it's a pretty cool gig. You should come play some shows with us. And I was like, I'll definitely play the 5 spot. You know, I don't know about playing with Nolan. You know, I'm really not trying to be a musician right now.
Right.
And then he was like, well, the 2 gigs in town we have that you should play are the Caverns and Bonnaroo.
Okay.
And I was like,
well, you know, those are not small gigs.
Yeah, I was like, well, I mean, I'll try it, you know. And,
sure.
Yeah. And then, I went out with them. We played in Jefferson City, Missouri was our first show. And the next night we played the Caverns. And I, fell in love with Nolan. Nolan is awesome. An amazing person. But like, even the music he would play in the van are songs that I just didn't know anybody else knew. I was like, you know that song? I know that song, you know, like that's awesome. And we became good buddies, and I just was like, I'm just gonna. He was like, you wanted to stay on the road, and I was like, yeah. And so I've just been on the road with him. That's mostly what I do.
Okay. Well, in saying that, do you think that the okay? Well, how do you feel now that you're back into music compared to when you kind of walked away from it and said, you know what, this just isn't my, it's not me. I need to quote grow up.
Yeah.
You know, and I know there's so many people, especially creatives, that maybe hit that wall and say, you know what, I need to give up on my art, no matter what their art is. And they say, I need to grow up. Because maybe even people are telling them, why don't you grow up and get a real job?
Yeah.
You know, and for a creative, I think being told that is a slap in the face. You know, I mean, if you truly are committed and truly are talented, I think eventually, if it's meant to be, obviously it will find you. And, you know, so how do you feel when you call yourself a musician now instead of somebody says, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, I cook here.
Yeah.
Where you can say, oh, I'm a professional piano player, but I also cook on the side.
Yeah.
You know, you can say it like that compared to, oh, you know, I'm a full-time cook, but, you know, I play a few gigs here and there on the piano. You know, you reverse it
Yeah.
and you put the art first. How does that make you feel when you are able to say that?
A lot of things. Mostly I feel awesome because it's like I've always wanted to do this, honestly. So it's like I get to. It's really special, and I feel really grateful and excited and like full of life again, and hopeful, like optimistic. Like I feel like things can work out.
Yeah.
Which is the opposite of how I felt. I feel foolish, honestly, that I thought I'd have to do something else. You know.
Well, I can see that there's a glow about you when you say, you know, that you are optimistic about it and that, you know, everything that you just said, I mean, you just lit up when you said that. And I think that personally is awesome when somebody can talk about their art and they just glow and they smile when they talk about it. That to me tells me this person is committed. This person they're doing what they're meant to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
And it feels like that. But I mean, you were saying like to your point about how, you know, sometimes people tell you need to grow up and stuff. I do think like I got really lucky. And I know that. And I think it's really tough, you know, if you like I got like the biggest shot of confidence you could get, you know, and a lot of people don't get that. And it makes it hard. And I don't think you should give up on art, and you're right. I think if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But the other side of it is sometimes I think the music industry can be really tough and can really push out people who are extremely talented just because of a connection that somebody else had, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's an interesting thing. As great as I feel, I do recognize that I am very lucky, and there are people who could probably who are better, more deserving. I don't know, because they are my close friends. There's a whole thing of being in the band that has nothing to do with music, you know, and has to do with just hanging out. But
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird dynamic where, you know, sometimes I feel like why do I get to be here? Like, you know?
Well, I think, you know, my full-time job, I've said that several times, you know, why do I get to be here and somebody else doesn't? And I start finding myself questioning a whole lot about that. And, you know, it takes me down some paths that I don't want to go down.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that. And when I finally started noticing that about myself, I'm like, wait a minute. Now I feel like I'm questioning my ability, not why I'm here, but I'm questioning my ability. And I am definitely able to do this. There's no question. And if I question my own ability, other people are going to see that and they're going to question my ability.
Yeah.
And then that puts me in a very weird position.
Mm-hmm.
And I've stopped asking myself that and said, you know what? You're here for a reason.
Yeah.
And then that kind of puts a little positive swing on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start looking at the positive things that I've done, you know, and situations that I look back on now and go, oh, wow, I did that. You know, how many people that I know outside this industry could do that?
Yeah.
Probably nobody.
Yeah.
I was able to go in there and show out.
Mm-hmm.
And show my abilities and show, you know, who I am. And I think maybe in music, it's the same way.
For sure. Yes.
And I've talked to a lot of musicians, very talented people, man. Very talented people, writers, singers, instrumentalists. You know, they get up there on the stage and they become a different person.
Yeah.
You know, they're the life of the party.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's look at me because I'm about to show out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's what I love about music, and especially live music, is I've watched bands, I've seen you know, and you've seen this too, a drummer, a song's fixing to end, it's got, you know, maybe a boom, boom, tsh, and that's the end of the song. Well, the drummer just keeps going. And he just keeps going. And you can look at him and say, you know what? That dude's in his own place right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let it go.
Yep.
And me as a fan, I'm sitting back and I'm looking at the band. I'm like, let this dude play. Because he is somewhere else right now. And I'm enjoying where he's at because he's got the crowd rocking.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, a good band to me is going to look at that and say, you know what? He's done this before. Let's go ahead and jump in and we'll play our part just to keep things interesting. But now he's the one that's running the show.
Yep.
Or the guitar player, or, you know, somebody they're in that moment and they're like, I'm not going to let this go.
Yeah.
This feels great. I've got to get this out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do it and, you know, deal with it. And I think that to me is what live music's about. You know, I'm the type dude that when I go watch a band, I probably critique way too many different things. Lighting, sound, you know, not necessarily instruments, but it's like, man, why do you got the bass turned up so freaking high? I can't hear anything else.
Yeah.
You know, or every time he hits a cymbal, it just completely closes everybody else out.
Yeah.
You know, to me, it kind of feels like, are y'all covering something up?
Yeah.
You know, is there somebody up here who can't play the way it sounds on the album?
Right.
You know, and that just, I know I just kind of went off on a little tangent right there, but, you know, it happens from time to time. So.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about me. We're talking about you. So.
Well, no, I mean, to add to that conversation, it's interesting hearing your perspective because on stage, you know, like, we want to move you, the audience. So it's interesting hearing your perspective because, like, if our drummer went off and just started doing stuff, it would be like, dude, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
But if the crowd's really into it, it's like, yeah, let's go with it, you know?
Right.
So that's just an interesting thing. And I think that it is annoying when bands, and I don't know if it's the instrumentalist, sometimes it's the sound guy, and it's hard because we can't hear what you guys hear.
Right.
We're behind.
Yeah.
And so like if a cymbal crash is eating up the rest of the stuff, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, that has to do a lot with, yes, the drummer and making sure that he is balanced with the band, because you're not overtaking or anything. But yeah, it's distracting to you, which is taking away from the experience of the music.
Well, from my perspective, granted, I don't know near enough about music or, live shows or how to play instruments, but if I do notice, say, all of a sudden the bass player's taking over, and I look at the rest of the band and they look like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. To me, I'm just like, okay, sound guy, where are you at?
Right.
The bass is just. I've actually walked away from a couple of shows because it was one of them, it was drums, the other ones, it was bass. And it was like, are you not hearing this?
Yeah.
Because all I'm hearing is the bass. And I'm watching the band, and they are up there doing their thing. And I mean, it looks like music, video style up there.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing their thing. But this bass is literally hitting so hard, I feel it.
Yeah.
I'm not even hearing the vocals.
Yeah.
Crazy. And, I've walked out of shows that I've paid for because, I don't want this experience in my mind to be a negative on the band.
Right.
Because I like these guys and gals going in.
Right.
I know what I expect, but what I'm getting is something different. So I'm going to walk out and say, you know what? People make mistakes. We're all human.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold that against the band and say, oh, well, they're not as good as, what I hear on the CD. It must be a blah, blah, blah. I
think that's a great approach because especially like most bands don't have their own front of house guy. It's the venue's sound guy.
Yeah.
And depending on the venue, the sound guy doesn't necessarily want to be there or like care to be there. And it's like, and they don't know the band either. They don't know. They're also like, well, like if the bass player is hitting too hard and the sound guy could be like, maybe that's just what they do. I don't know. I'm just here at my job.
Yeah.
So it's rough. It's a weird dynamic.
Yeah. I think for me, I guess the biggest aggravation is being in Nashville, being in Music City, where massive amounts of music are made from, obviously writing and up to production. Producers, engineers, all over this city. People who are, singer-songwriters, but know how to run a soundboard.
Right.
And there's so much talent in this town. Why am I going to a show and dissatisfied?
Yeah.
And that aggravates me to no end because for those people who came to see this band, they're fans of this band, they want to hear what they heard on the way in, because everybody listens to their favorite band on the way in.
Right.
So you can sing with the songs, right?
Yeah.
And, when I get up there and it's not the same thing, I'll give you one or two songs.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, maybe their sound check or, maybe the band's up there and they're into it now.
Yeah.
Where at sound check, they're doing their thing, but now the crowd's into it, the energy's here, they're putting on a show.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll give them one or two songs for sound guy kind of tweaks it down, says, okay, we need to do this. But I've turned around, looked at, the soundboard, and it's like, where is this person? They're not even there.
Oh, yeah. We've had experiences where it's like on stage, we have to, or Nolan will have to call out the sound guy,
Yeah. Well,
Insane.
to me, that if I've never seen your band and I just happen to be in the venue and, or maybe I came to see somebody else and you guys open, and I've run into this a million times where I came to see the main act and I've never heard of the opening act, but, I'm gonna give them a shot. I'm gonna listen. And I've heard some, it's just like, these guys are awful. But it wasn't the band.
Yeah.
It was the sound guy, because he had everything prearranged for the main act.
Right.
And, the guys who are opening, they're doing their normal, the way they sing, the way they play, everything's normal for them. And it's just not translating to the audience the same way that it should,
Right.
because things are set for them. And, like you say, you're behind the speakers, so you're not hearing what the crowd's hearing.
Right.
And I don't think that's fair when a band goes up there and they're like, you know what, we're getting a chance. We're being able to play for people because this person thought
Right.
we were good enough to open for them.
This brings up an interesting topic. Also, one of the reasons I've loved playing with Nolan is because I've gotten a really cool insight into Nolan signed to a label.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten a cool insight into that. Because I used to be very rebellious and against labels and against the man,
Right.
But the nice thing is if you can have, because it takes resources to really put on a show,
Yeah.
And with enough resources, you can have your own FOH guy, who knows the band, who tours with you, who is with you, not just a random guy.
Yeah.
So you can have, you can secure that level of the show will be good.
Right.
You can secure that.
Yeah.
But it takes resources, it takes money. And I think labels get a bad rap, but I think some labels can do a really good job of finding artists who are genuinely good, who have nothing, and helping them out.
Right.
But it's an interesting thing because that problem you're talking about is everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about labels, as far as labels go, I know I've talked to people that are the business end of music. They're like me. They can't play. They can't sing. They can't do anything with the creative aspect of music, but they do know the business side of music, and that's what they do professionally.
Right.
And I've talked to a lot of people who are like, I got into the business to support artists. I got into the business because I love music so much. Even though I'm not a creative, maybe I can still make money in the business because I know a little bit about business.
Right.
And there's a separation between creatives and business people. And, you got to find that perfect balance.
Right. That healthy relationship.
Right. And I think that I know a lot of artists that, man, they're good at what they do. They're good people. They're committed. I mean, super committed to their music. And I know this one band, great people. Even during, even during the lockdown when they weren't playing, they always had a smile on their face. Even when they're like, man, I don't know what we're going to do next month because we have no money coming in, but they're like, you know what? We'll make it through. We have to. And they smiled the whole time. And it's like, man, you guys are so freaking positive.
Yeah.
But they're both, or the group is super creative, and that's what they do. But they refuse to sign with a label. They're like, we'll drive our own vehicles to shows. We don't travel. When we open for big bands who may have buses and may even fly to shows, we'll drive.
Yeah.
We do it our way.
Which is cool. If it's working for you, no need to knock it,
Right.
But yeah, I just think they get a bad rap. I think it is to just say labels, the general word label, and just say that's no good for me, I think you're missing out on potentially something that could really be great.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah. Well, this band, they enjoy the way they do things, and they have specifically chosen this route because that's what they like and what feels good for them. And I said, surely a label has approached you. They're like, oh yeah, several times.
Yeah.
We've read through the documents. We've sat there in the room, and at the end of the day, we're like, you know what, this it just doesn't feel right.
And that's also incredible. Like, if it is working, then hell yeah, because like there are definitely horror stories of labels. There are people who just suck on the business side of things, who just feed off artists and just take full advantage. And
yeah, and I've seen that also. I've seen the music industry chew up and spit out people that were way past talented.
Yeah.
I mean, way past talented, and they got burned so bad that they're like, you know what, it just sitting down to write, just singing in front of my friends, just playing, just pick up the guitar, set the piano and play it. It reminds me of what happened.
Yeah.
And, it sours them towards their art.
Yeah.
And that to me that's a shame, because there are so many people like me that are not talented enough to create music, which I wish I could, but I can't. It's just not my thing. And I accept that. And I'm hoping that, through this podcast that's my entry into the music industry.
Yeah.
Finding out everything I can about the music industry and, maybe living vicariously through you guys that I interview, because I would like to know what it's like from your side, standing on stage, looking out at people like me, being in the studio, playing, producing, you're in there creating. I don't get that chance to do. I wish I could.
Yeah.
But I'm at a point in my life where obviously I couldn't say, you know what, let me just give up what I'm doing full time and go take some piano lessons, some guitar lessons, some drum lessons, and find somebody who can say, you know what, I'll give you singing lessons, and just, if it was meant to be, it would have already happened.
Yeah, for sure.
So I kind of feel like at this point, I want to know what it's like on your end as a creative, and how things are going in your life, and how things, how you see the music industry and your art from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've really been enjoying it a lot recently. I mean, it's hard. Sometimes it's really hard. It's hard for reasons that nobody else will really understand too. It's like I'm just too tired. Like, I just didn't sleep a lot last night. I don't necessarily want to go play a D minor chord,
Yeah.
It's so much like a normal job sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's also awesome. I mean, it's really cool. It's cool to be on stage and there be 1,000 people in front of you, and you're like, whoa, it's really scary sometimes, and then it's not. Also, it's I don't know. It's fun. It's fun. It's like a job in the sense, I don't know what your job is, your full-time job, or maybe it's this job where you kind of like, you get to lose yourself and you get to just get obsessed, and it's okay, and you get to have fun, and you're just really happy doing the thing you're doing.
Yeah.
And like Sunday, I was recording a song for somebody. I was kind of mixing it and producing it and stuff, and even just like messing with their reverb on their voice, trying to get it to sound right. or what I thought was right,
Yeah.
I could have done that for hours, you know?
Yeah.
It was awesome.
All right. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm finished with the home style. So if you want to, we can go ahead and crack this second beer.
Let's do it.
This beer is Sweet Home. It is a IPA, 6.5% ABV from Hop Butcher, which is out of Chicago, Illinois. All right, let's go ahead and crack this open.
I don't really know how to pour a beer. I'm just kind of faking it, honestly.
Oh no, that's good enough. I poured mine a little too aggressively, and as you can see, that beer's got a heck of a head on it. But you actually did a much better job of pouring your beer. Yeah, that camera ought to be able to pick that up.
Don't you want talk about beer for a second. Don't you want the big head because it gets rid of the carbonation?
Well, you do if you have time to sit and let it do its thing. But, I mean, what you did right there,
Let the bartender pour?
yeah. But this right here is me pouring way too fast out of a can. So I'm going to have to, I guess, sit here and watch it for a second. But while it's resting, we can go ahead and get a sniff and see what we think.
Yeah.
What are you getting out of that?
I accidentally got it on my mustache. It kind of feels like it's going to be similar to the home style. You can read on the can. It says it has notes of citrus and stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, like, when you sniff the home style, it's like you can almost smell the barrel or something, or the wood. There's like I guess you said earth.
Yeah.
You kind of smell the brewery almost.
Yeah. Where
here you kind of just, I'm not getting that part.
Well, that's the difference in, each brewery. Every brewer is going to, even though they're producing a IPA as it is labeled, I consider, and this is why I want to bring beer into the podcast, is because I see beer like music. You can, there's a million different IPAs out there, right, which need to follow the same basic recipe, to be considered an IPA, where there are a million bands out there playing a certain genre of music. Right. But each band is going to have their own creative twist on the music, even though their music may be put in a box to fit a certain genre. Right. That band has their own creative twist on the music, which makes it either better or worse. It depends on how you look at it, which is the same way beer is. Right. Each brewery is going to put their own little twist on an IPA to make it their own. Yeah. So that's to me why beer and music are similar. I kind of see them the same way, and that's, plus I like drinking beer and talking to musicians. So it's kind of a win-win for me.
Me too. This is awesome.
Oh, that beer is creamy.
Yeah.
It's subtle.
That's the right word.
It has good flavor. It has kind of a sweet malt, but not overly sweet. It's creamy enough to, well, maybe that's not the right way to put it. It's the hops that are in the beer are able to offset the malt. Even though the malt does show up a little at first, it doesn't linger. No. But the citrus aspect is dialed back so that it's not so strong that it completely wipes the malt out. Right. So you get kind of a even kill. Yeah. Across the board. Everything in this beer at least for me, really blends well. There's not something that just really sticks out there.
Yeah.
And, where some beer, maybe the malt's a little heavy, maybe the citra's a little heavy or whatever particular style hops they're using, it'll just show up and just kind of smack you in the mouth and you're like, okay, wow, where'd that come from?
Yeah. I kind of, I guess the malt is, I've never been a fan of creamy things, like cream soda, My mom loves cream soda, but I've just never been able to stomach it.
Yeah.
It's got it's interesting you say that because the cream to me, the malt, I guess, smacks me in the mouth, which is interesting because...
Well, the creaminess is going to be more of the well, I'm not going to say body because this is a medium to full body. The creaminess is kind of the sensation, if that makes sense, where it's not the flavor aspect. It's more of a sensation once you kind of call it creamy, and then right in behind that, you can say, okay, this is either medium bodied or full bodied, and it kind of, a beer that kind of sticks with you for a second, as opposed to, drinking these mass produced beers and you can just sit there and slam them. And it's like by the time you swallow it, the beer's sensation, everything's already gone, the flavor and everything. Yeah. And that's what I like about craft beer. If it's done right, it'll stick around just a little bit, depending on the style, of course. If it's, a barrel-aged, high ABV beer, it's going to stick around for a while, which is what you want, because you definitely don't want to sit there and slam that like it's some,
Miller Lite or something.
Yeah, because that's not good. Yeah. At least it's not for me. I'm sure there are people that can do it, but I've done it.
Same.
I didn't like...
I
didn't like the next day, but I did it, so I learned my lesson. Yeah. So I've learned to watch, the way I consume beer. If it's barrel aged, I'm gonna approach that one a little bit slower than I would just a good IPA. And as far as this one is concerned, I'm pretty impressed with this beer. I haven't seen it hardly anywhere in Nashville. Hopefully, it's definitely going to be showing up. Again, this is Sweet Home from Hop Butcher. It is a IPA. It's 6.5 ABV. It has Citra, Eldorado, Montica hopped IPA. So... yeah, those are a few of my favorite things all wrapped up in one beer. So, all right, I'm definitely enjoying this.
Yeah, I think this, so my dad and my grandpa and my grandma. So my dad's side of the family is all from Chicago.
Okay.
I think this might be my first Chicago beer.
Well, I haven't had a great deal of beer out of Chicago, but honestly, what I have had, it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe I've gotten well, I'm not going to say maybe I've gotten lucky and not had a bad beer from Chicago. It's hard for me to say a beer is bad. It may not be my flavor.
Right, yeah.
Like, again...
with music.
Circling back to music, I can't say this song is bad. It's just not my style.
Right.
And not being a musician or not being a brewery, I don't think I have the right to say this is gross. I can just say, you know what? It's not my style. I'm not going to drink it again. That's not my style of music. I'm not going to buy their album.
Right.
But for me to just poo-poo someone's art, be it music or beer, I don't think that's fair because I'm not a brewer.
Right.
I don't create my own beer. I'm not a musician or an artist. I don't create my own music. So I don't think I have the right to say this is bad.
Yeah.
It's just not my style.
Yeah.
You know, but there are plenty of people out there that would drink this beer that I don't like. There's plenty of people out there that would consume that music that I don't like.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
I mean, what would the world be if all music sound the same and all beer tastes the same? Boring.
Yeah. Incredibly.
So, you know, I'm that's why I incorporate beer into the podcast, is because one, you know, I like trying new beers I've never had before. Two, I like being surprised with beers when artists bring something. I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, I wish I could have grabbed that Make You. I was seeing my buddy play, and I just didn't have time. They only sell it at this one store in East Nashville, so I didn't have time to go over to East because he was playing at the Village Tavern, so I didn't have time to get there and then here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's fine.
But it's a really good beer. You should definitely check out the Make You Make You. I think it's Make You.
Okay. Well, you sent it to me in that text, so I'll definitely check it out. But as far as what, you know, I mean, what's sitting on the table right now, I'm definitely impressed with both these beers. The home style from Bearded Iris, as well as the Sweet Home from Hot Butcher. Definitely a couple of IPAs that if you're an IPA fan, you should definitely check out if you have not had these beers. And I'm going to go ahead and top mine off and finish this. Because this is it's a hazy IPA, but it's not too heavy, which is, I don't know how much hazy IPA you drink, or if, you know, hazy IPAs are even your thing.
Well, so I'm not the most versed beer drinker. I do like IPAs and craft beer, and the home style got me into hazy beers. So typically if I'm out, like my first beer, I'll grab a hazy IPA.
Yeah.
Probably not my fourth beer. I'm going to drink a hazy IPA because it'll make I
Right.
have a weak stomach. But yeah, this is really good. It gets better the more I drink it too.
Yeah, and that's
Like
one,
easier to drink.
yeah, that's one thing I like about craft beers, that before you walked in, I had this sitting on the table for a few minutes. That way it warmed up a little bit because it was real cold. I like craft beer I don't think this, again, me personally, I don't think it should be drank cold, because you're going to miss a lot of the flavor profile of the beer if it's just real cold. So I like to, if a beer's too cold, pour it and just kind of let it sit for a minute. Let it open up, kind of like, you know, bourbon drinkers do bourbon. Wine drinkers do wine. They open it, they pour it, and they just kind of let it sit and let it open up, let the air get to it, and bring in the full flavors. Yeah. Well, I treat craft beer the same way. You let the carbonation do its thing and kind of find where it wants to be, and that opens up the beer, the
flavors and
right. So if you let the beer sit for a minute, and, you know, as we talk and the beer warms up just a little bit more, you'll find that the profile changes. Not greatly, but you'll find little nuances here and there. You're like, oh, okay, I didn't taste that a minute ago. I kind of like that. Well, the next time you taste it, that same nuance might show up just a little bit stronger.
yeah.
And you're kind of like, wow, I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
You know, and I like that beer even more. Or on the flip side, man, this whatever, you know, I'm picking up, it just keeps getting stronger and stronger. And it's just, I don't think I'll drink this again. You know, but that's not saying it's bad beer. It's just not your thing. But that beer has opened up and given you everything the brewery put in the can. They test and retest the recipes, and they come up with something. Say, you know what, this is what I want to put my name on and send to the masses.
Yeah.
This is my final production that I'm going to shoot out. The same way a band or an artist says, you know what, I've practiced. This is it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to play when I'm on stage. And you either like it or you don't. This is what I feel this song should be. This is what I feel this beer should be. And it's the same. It's kind of the same thing. Maybe you need to kind of digest the song or the artistry and say, you know what, at first it didn't hit me, but the more I think about it, I kind of see what they were saying in the song. Maybe the words didn't directly say what the artist was thinking. Mm-hmm. But if you kind of sit back and digest it, you're like, oh, I see what they're saying. I see why that song is considered a sad song, even though maybe the melody is a little faster. And, in my mind, beer translates the same way. Yeah. You can say, that beer, after it opens up, it is an IPA, an American IPA, a hazy IPA, just... There's so many different ways. But, you can say, I kind of get the nuance of it now. I kind of see what the brewer was supposed to be putting out, because I've read reviews on beers. I've gone online to brewers' websites. Oh, well, this beer, it tastes this, blah, 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 blah. And I drink it, and I'm like, no, I'm not really getting half of what you said is supposed to be in here. But... you sit back, you let it warm up, you kind of let it do its thing, and then you approach it, and then you're kind of like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this beer now.
Yeah.
And I approach beer and music the same way. Yeah. Being someone who can't produce either.
Right.
But being someone who can enjoy both. Mm-hmm. That's the way I approach that.
That's pretty interesting. I think because I've had several bands I've listened to, and at first been like, actually my favorite band in the world, I'm wearing their shirt, Dawes. Like the first, I don't know, maybe 2 years of me knowing about them, I would listen to them kind of here and there and be like, and then something happened, and it was like, oh, this is what I think is the best band in the world.
Yeah, and
so I think that will translate. I think you bring that up. I think I'll drink beer a little more open-minded.
Well, I think, if you're not, and I tell people, because I think anyone who maybe this is the path I followed. When I first started getting into craft beer, I avoided IPAs. To me, it just seems so grassy and just kind of like...
Yeah.
And I literally told one of my friends, I'm like, dude, drinking IPAs, like going out and picking up a handful of fresh cut grass that has sat overnight in a rainstorm and shoving that in your mouth and saying, oh, this is delicious. Yeah. No, it's not. Are you a horse? Are you a goat? Why are you eating grass? And I had a friend who, huge into craft beer, man. I mean, super huge. He could sniff a craft beer and pull out so many different flavors and aromas. And I'm like, are you going to enjoy it, or are you just going to sit there and talk about it? Because I'm ready to go ahead. And he told me, he's like, you know what? I'm going to get you into IPAs, but it's going to be a slow process, because we did some beer evals at the house sitting at the kitchen table. So he kind of found where I was at as far as what I enjoyed flavor profile wise. So he started bringing beers to our little meetup. and saying, okay, well, here, try this. And I'm like, oh, that can says IPA. Well, that can says hazy IPA. I definitely am not into try it.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the deal.
Yeah.
I try what he brings. He tries what I bring. So, and as I'm drinking it, he would see me make that face. And before I could even say anything, he would be, well, how's that Citra? How's that, where's that pineapple? Where's that tropical fruit? And I'm he put that thought into my head, and it would almost immediately change my thought on that beer. It's like, whoa.
Yeah,
That tropical fruit does kind of.
And that really is so much like music. So I had a professor when I was 18 who, when I was 18, I was like, I don't like this professor. I think he's kind of arrogant and not very good with talking to me. And looking back, I was definitely just being a kid,
Yeah.
I wanted to get into jazz, but I wasn't a jazz player. And he was like, you just got to listen to more jazz, right? You just got to try your beers. Just go out and try the beers.
Yeah.
And so I started listening to a lot more jazz and talking to people who like jazz. And you learn stuff like, okay, a major 7 chord sounds like this on its own, right? Like pineapple tastes like pineapple.
Right.
You put pineapple, that major 7 chord, in amongst all this other flavors, right? And music, it's harmony or whatever. And the pineapple takes on a whole new thing. That major 7 chord is now a tensiony kind of like, whoa, what is that? And then you have to release it or keep the tension going.
I like that. I haven't. Okay. So your approach to beer is a little more. I like that. I wish I could translate it in that way, but again, I'm not a musician, so. But yeah, I agree with that completely. And that's the thing about beer and about music. It's not just one thing.
Right.
It's a combination of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the, let's say, singer who brings it all together to make it, at least from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I can listen to a band, play their instruments, everybody's getting fired up, and the vocals don't come in right away. And then the vocals come in and kind of wrap it up, put the bow on top, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a fan, as a consumer, you kind of start leaning on the vocals. So that either you're yay or nay at that point on the band. So with beer, at least from my perspective, it's similar.
Mm-hmm.
The hops aspect, the Citra, if it's a Citra hops, or if it's more of a earthy hops, or if it's more of a green, for lack of a better term, kind of grassy type hops. Some people like that hard driving vocal that's just screaming on the mic.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like that real earthy, grassy, just hops, and they're just like, that is what I want. I'm not that guy. But at the same time, I respect it. I'm like, wow, that beer did exactly, it tasted exactly the way it's supposed to. It's not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone and watched bands. I'm like, oh my God, what have I walked into? But it's like, you know what? It's not my thing, but they're doing what I heard on their album.
Yeah.
Exactly what I heard on their album is what they're doing on stage. It just isn't my thing.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick, and then I actually probably should go if you don't mind.
No, it's fine.
Okay, I don't want to be rude, but my question to you, how do you feel if, like, you're listening to an artist and they're... And then you go to the show. I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. Let's just say you listen to an artist, right? And then you go to the show, and the show is totally different from the album, but it's still really good. It's like a different version of a song.
Okay, so...
Still the same song. You still get to sing along,
So they're they're tweaking it because it's live. Or
Yeah.
maybe they're saying, you know what, let's lean on the guitar a little bit. Let's
Or
lean
even
on the
the
keys.
instrumentation itself is different.
Okay, I'm a count guy. I love keeping up with count. I, if I'm singing a song, if I'm listening to a song, if music is in the background, I don't have it. I have a TV at the house. I don't have it hooked up because one, I work a lot. Two, I'd rather listen to music than watch TV because I can do other things that I have to do.
Right.
So now music is in the background. But if I'm sitting down paying bills and
Right.
a song comes on, I'll find my foot tapping. So my foot's keeping count. Or tap on the table, keep count. And I do this unconsciously. Now, to your point, if I go watch a band play a song and I catch myself subconsciously tapping my foot and they're keeping up with the original count, then I can look at the song and say, are they tweaking it, doing something? Are they giving us a little something different because we're here and it's
Right.
live? Or are they just absolutely failing it?
Right.
Then I really look and it's like everybody's up there. They're working together, even though it sounds different. You can tell this is the way it's supposed to be. So
Gotcha.
I really dissect when things musically are different.
Yeah.
And that has actually turned me on to a band. And I'll go ahead and say it. When I was in college, all my friends were Dave Matthews fans. I couldn't stand Dave Matthews. I'm like, I don't see, what I know. All you guys smoke pot, and that's fine.
Yeah.
To each his own, right?
Right.
So y'all sit around and smoke pot and listen to Dave Matthews. So immediately in my brain, Dave Matthews, was pot smoking music. And so I didn't like it just
Yeah.
because weed's not my thing.
Yeah.
But I actually met Dave Matthews a couple of times when he came to Nashville. Very nice guy, down to earth, cool dude. And I was able to, I don't remember exactly the setting, but Dave Matthews was a filmed concert, so we're sitting there watching that. And I'm like, this sounds exactly like the album. Exactly. These dudes are not missing. But you knew it was live because he would tweak the vocals a little bit, or, an instrument would tweak a little bit. And I was like, wait a minute, hang on. These guys are talented. So, all right, well, let me step back and revisit the Dave Matthews Band. And then I would start listening to the music, and I'm like, okay, it's not my style, because at the time I had 3 or 4 genres that were really something that I guess stuck with. And Dave Matthews wasn't in those genres. And then I started, I guess being in college is when my mind just got blown to so many different styles of music. Take the music for what it is. Look at the creative aspect of the music. Even if it's not your style, what are they saying? And are they conveying their feelings or their emotions in this song? If they are, that's what they're supposed to do. Respect that. If it seems like they're just getting up there trying to appeal to everybody, and sing a song or convey a message that fits everybody, makes everybody happy, that's not them. That's not art. That's somebody trying to make money. That's the way I see it. If somebody gets up there and sings vocals or writes a song or plays a genre I'm not, okay, well, hold on. Maybe it's not my thing. Let's listen to it a few times. I'll buy the CD on the way out. I'll go home. I'll spin it for 3 or 4 days straight and just kind of put myself, just really kind of do a deep dive into it and say, you know what are they saying? There's a message here I'm not getting. And when that light bulb goes off and that message just ping, I'm like, oh, okay. Now I like the way they even delivered it. So now I find myself really starting to lean in, and if I'm listening to the radio and they're like, oh, the new one from such and such band, I kind of stop what I'm doing. I'm like, all right, well, what they got? What are they putting out that I haven't heard yet? Then I take it in. I'm kind of like, I know their style. So now it's easier for me to digest and translate the song. Mm-hmm. And it makes me even more of a fan.
Yeah. You should check out Dawes if you haven't listened to Dawes.
I have. I'm a fan of.
I know. It's awesome.
So I listen to everybody they play, and I'm a fan of. I'm an absolute fan. So it's been fun. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too. I think I've learned a lot about beer, which is awesome. Yeah.
Well, the world of beer and the world of music, at least for me, are the same thing. I enjoy trying new bands, new beers, new two beers with a band. Let me throw that in there. It's all fun to me. Beer and music go together like a hand in a glove.
Yeah.
Who wants to go watch a show somewhere and not have a beer in their hand? If you're not a beer drinker, a bourbon or a wine or whatever your choice is. But for me, it's beer, and good beer and good music go hand in hand. That makes a perfect night for me. So
I understand.
All right. Well, it's been a fun conversation. I'm glad that we were able to finally sit down.
Yeah.
And enjoy a couple of beers and
thank you for having me.
Music, man. Anytime.
Seriously.
Anytime you want to come back, you're more than welcome.
I'd love to. I had a blast. Honestly, I feel bad. I gotta go.
No, man. I mean, hey, we all got things to do. Everybody's got a life to live. So, I'm trying to catch you in between times and get to know you a little bit, get to know the music, and have a couple of beers, and
That's what I love to do.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, you as well.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Two Beers with Band podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you would like to donate to the show, the link is in the description. 80% of this month's donation will go to the music charity listed on the 2BWB website, and 20% will go to the upkeep of the show, new equipment, payroll, and rent of the recording locations. Learn more about today's show at 2BWB on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and anywhere you enjoy the show.